Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Zerays Hashmi, and welcome to my podcast. This is episode 1, the first pitch. So, as many of you baseball fans know, there's been a lot going on so far. Spring training's right around the corner, and we've experienced some major signings, some major scandals, and other big news. If you're a baseball fan, stay tuned, listen to this podcast and the future episodes that will come up. You'll be really interested as I'll be talking about news of your favorite teams and players. Now I know a lot of you guys might be thinking about myself. What am I? What is my experience with baseball? What is my favorite teams? Well, I've been a baseball fan for many years. I've been watching this sport, and I've been in a community where people didn't really like baseball as much. It was always considered the sport that people don't watch. And it was really hard for me to, talk about the sport with other people because not everyone liked it. And for this exact reason, I'm creating this podcast because I wanted to create a space where people who love baseball can all gather around and listen and hear takes of their favorite players and teams and their favorite sport. Now, if you're curious about my favorite teams, I'm not your traditional baseball fan. I'm actually a fan of two teams. I'm a fan of the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles or Anaheim Angels. I've been a fan of both teams ever since I've been watching baseball. Both teams hold a special place in my heart, and watching baseball also holds a really big place in my heart as well. Now that we got the intro out of the way, let's dive in right to the first episode. And in this episode, I'll just be making basic predictions for each division and my picks from that. I won't be doing playoff picks, who's going to make it to the World Series and the World Series champion. It's way too early for me to decide that. But based on what I've seen from the offseason and the previous season, I'm sort of having a general sense of which teams will win their divisions and how the teams will be placing in their divisions. So starting off with the American League, I'm going to go with the American League East first. I have the Yankees going first. Pretty obvious. They have a really solid lineup with Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, etc. But with the addition of Garrett Cole, which I will talk about in a future episode, they've made themselves a powerhouse and a really, really good team. Second place, I have the Rays. As we all saw, the Rays are definitely a great team and a good playoff contender. I do see them doing well in the playoffs. They have a lot of depth with Willie Adames, and then they have Blake Snell for pitching. So they're a pretty solid team overall. I see them doing pretty well. In third place, I have the Blue Jays, and the reason why I have them at third because last year they didn't do very well, but they have a lot of good depth. They have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., they have Bo Bichette. Those are two really good players, and I see them doing well. At fourth place, we have the Red Sox, and the reason why I put the Red Sox at fourth is because, Alex Cora, and they've basically been involved with the whole cheating scandal, so because of that, I don't see them doing as well as they did beforehand. Not to mention, Mookie Betts is in huge trade talks. And at last place, we have the Baltimore Orioles. And, this is pretty self-explanatory. The Baltimore Orioles are knee-deep in a rebuild, and they're going to need a few more years to actually start contending. I actually interviewed a Baltimore Orioles fan that attends the school. How do you think your favorite team will do this season?
I think it's pretty low expectations. They finished in last place last year and the year before that, so I don't expect too much from them. I think the goal should just be win more games than you did last year. So.
Casey Hartley. And here's what he had to say about his team. Up next, we have the AL Central. I have the Twins going first place. Again, pretty self-explanatory based off last year. Second place, we have the White Sox, and I think that, again, They have made a lot of additions, and I think their roster is pretty intact, but I don't think they're going to be first place. Next up, we have the Indians. Again, they've traded Corey Kluber. They might trade Francisco Lindor. That hasn't happened yet. But, I just don't see them being this, better than the White Sox or Twins this year. Then we have the Tigers and then the Royals, who are knee-deep in a rebuild as well. Up next, the final division in the American League West, where my Angels play. At first place, we have the Athletics, and the reason why is because, again, their managing is really good, and they consistently show that they can fight for a playoff spot. And I think this year with the Astros going down, they're not going to be a first-place team. Second place, however, I'm putting the Astros. Now, the reason why the Astros aren't in first place, as we all know, because of the scandal, in which I will go into depth about in a future episode, they lost their manager and their general manager, and they've been exposed for a system that they've been using since 2017. So if they stop using the system, which they will, it might hurt them a bit, but I still don't see them being completely horrible. Up next, we have the Angels, which is my favorite team in the American League. And the reason why I have the Angels third place is because while they have made a big impact on their offense with Anthony Rendon and their defense as well, at the same time, while they have a good lineup, they don't have solid pitching. I'm not too optimistic about the season this year. They could maybe make it to the playoffs, but I don't know. Additionally, I interviewed Bobby Lopez, an Angels fan, and this is what he had to say about the season. So I'm here with Bobby Lopez, an Angels fan. How do you think the Angels are going to do this season?
Well, how I think they're going to do this season, I think they'll easily make second in AL West for sure. Depending on if they make the wild card or not, that's depending on how much they want it, I guess. I don't know. What did surprise me though this season, which I think will have a big help to this season, will be Anthony Rendon signing. That really surprised me out of nowhere.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't know he was even gonna leave, but I guess he did. Now he's here. So yeah, that's how.
All right, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the Rangers, which I think they're not going to be that great. But they'll do pretty well for fourth. And then the Mariners, who are also knee-deep in a rebuild. As for the National League, for the National League East, I'm starting off with the Braves, a young core with Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies, etc. They're going to be really good. Next up, we have the Nats. Now, I know the Nats are the current World Series champions, but they lost Anthony Rendon, and that was a key part of their offense. I still think that they could make it to first. This is not a set-in-stone prediction. I'm still open to changes. Juan Soto, too, will be really good. Next up, we have the Phillies. I just feel like if the Phillies play like how they did last year, they're still not going to do that great, although they do have a really good acquisition with Zach Wheeler for their pitching. And then we have the Mets going at fourth. Now, again, this division, the NL East, was really hard because I see great potential in these four teams: the Braves, Nats, Phillies, and Mets. And the Mets have Pete Alonso. They have really good pitchers in Syndergaard, who they might trade, and DeGrom, who is an elite pitcher, one of the most elite in my opinion. And I feel like those four teams, they're gonna have a really big combat. This is gonna be a really tough division in my opinion. And then at last place, we have the Miami Marlins, who, as we all know, knee deep in a rebuild. For the NL Central, I'm starting off with the Cardinals. The Cardinals are a really consistent team, and they've shown that in the NL Central, which isn't the easiest of divisions, they're able to stay up on top. And for that, I'm putting them at first place. Additionally, I interviewed Daniel Ramirez, a senior who happens to be a huge Cardinals fan, and this is what he has to say about his Cardinals.
I think they're going to do good again. They always seem to be a consistent team. Ever since since the 2000s, they've always been consistent, even when they lose their top players. They always seem to have a good AAA system where they bring up good players, and they also sign underrated players as well, and they kind of put them to all-star potential. So I think they kind of have a good system of where they're always consistent every year and at least make playoffs.
The Brewers are at second. They have some pitching problems, but they have a really good offense, especially with Christian Yelich. They're going second. Third place, the Cubs. They've lost Joe Madden, and they're basically I wouldn't say they're falling apart, but they're just not going to be as well as they were. Fourth place, the Reds. The Reds are making moves, but I still don't see them being the best team in the Central. They might be a lot better next year. And at last place, we have the Pirates, who are also knee-deep in a rebuild. And with the NL West, the final division, I'm having the Dodgers go first. Again, a really powerful team all across the board. Gavin Lux, who might come up, will also put in a big effort. And I actually interviewed a Dodgers fan, Andrew Gomez, and I had his opinion. Up next, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks, who have made a big acquisition in signing Madison Bumgarner. They've also signed Cole Calhoun as a low signing, but I think Cole Calhoun, who was an Angel, was pretty good. So I still think that they're going to be second place, but they're not going to do that bad. Third place, I have the Padres, and I feel like the Padres have a lot of potential with Eric Hosmer at first base. They have Manny Machado at shortstop. They have Fernando Tatis Jr., one of the best rookies last year. Then we have the Rockies, who they might trade Arenado. I don't think they're going to be that great next season. And the Giants, my favorite team in the National League, are going to be fifth. We're knee-deep in a rebuild, just like other teams, and I feel like we're not going to do well next season. However, this Giants team, though, I'd say would be a really great team in future seasons. And yeah, that's about it. I've basically covered episode 1, the first pitch. Those are my predictions. And stay tuned for episode 2. This is going to be a really interesting episode. It will be about the Astro scandal. Thank you for tuning in, and have a nice day.